Maryland football finds a way to become bowl eligible.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Maryland football showed grit and the ability to win a game they don't normally win to keep the season alive. In case you missed the game, the Terps found a way to beat Nebraska in a quite ugly game, maybe one of the ugliest games I have seen all of this season in just all of college football, not just Maryland football. And I watched a lot of football, NFL, college, high school, all of it. This might have been the most ugly game I have seen. I'm sure there's some other ones that are probably up there, that are definitely up there, that probably match how this game went. And it seemed like both teams tried to give the other team the win. But Maryland football does find a way to win a game that they normally don't win. The Terps went into Nebraska, and I want to give props to the Terps, even though I'll talk about it. The win was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. It wasn't a Talia 350-yard passing day and 3 touchdowns. It wasn't one of those pretty Maryland Terrapin offensive days. It wasn't. It felt like a rainy, mushy type of game for the Maryland Terrapins, and that's what it really was if you watch the game back. But we went into Nebraska, a hard environment to play in. Honestly, credit to Nebraska. Even when they're not having the best of year or whatnot, they seem to always sell out their stadium. I'm pretty sure there was a stat that says, like, they basically always sell out their stadium. So their fans always show up no matter what. And I think the Maryland Terrapins fans can learn a little bit from that. Can you imagine if we sold out our stadium no matter what our record was? But it was really cool to see an atmosphere in college football that even when they're not amazing, and I mean, they're solid, they're still in the race for the other side of the Big Ten, but like, they're not amazing either. They haven't gotten their 6th win on this season yet. They're 5-5. Like, they're not a super good team, but they still sell out their whole entire stadium. And Maryland went into that loud crowd and a tough environment in a hard place to play and got a win on the road. A game that just didn't feel like a game that the Maryland Terrapins normally find a way to win. Like I said, it was one of the more sloppy games I have seen. It was just ball all over the place, the amount of turnovers in the game. It was a very sloppy game, the Nebraska versus Maryland game. Maryland, it felt like we tried to give the ball away or tried to give the game away. We were so undisciplined the entire game, in which we've kind of been for the last 4 weeks. That's what's been a big part of our 4-game losing streak. It's been undisciplined. It's been penalties. It's been penalties at the wrong time. It's been coaching lapses. It's been player lapses. It's been different things like that honestly that we could control. Not everything, not all the things that have gone wrong. Most of the things that have gone wrong haven't been things that are out of our control. There are things that are in our hands, in our grasp, things that we know that we can do better, and that's what happened again against Nebraska. We had 10 penalties for 92 yards, which it's really hard to win that way when your offense is consistently getting backed up in the 3rd and 20s and starting the possession off with 1st and 20 because of a holding, or 1st and 15 because of a false start or something like that. It's really hard to win when you have 10 penalties for 92 yards, and that's not normally what Maryland Terrapins do. They do usually commit a lot of penalties, it seems like, these last couple of weeks on the losing streak, but we don't normally win those type of games when we do commit a lot of penalties. And then the number one reason the game was so sloppy. Yes, the penalties were part of it. Yes, there was a ton of punts. It was low scoring. But the number one reason was the turnovers. Maryland turned the ball over 3 times. 3 times. and still won the turnover margin by 2. That cannot happen for the rest of the season. When we go play Michigan next week, if you think we can turn over the ball 3 times, if you think we can turn over the ball 2 times, if you think we can turn over the ball probably 1 time and have any chance at making that game competitive at all, you're probably wrong. But we found a way to win a game where we turned over the ball 3 times and we still won the turnover margin by 2. The game was sloppy. It was a gritty win for the Terps. They showed a lot of grit in the game. But 2 fumbles lost, which we have to clean up. We got to stop fumbling the ball. Ty Felton, we just got to stop fumbling the ball. 2 fumbles lost because Michigan's going to come in and try and punch it out. Even Rutgers in their last game. That's what they teach in football now. The defenders are really good at punching the ball out. And then Talia also had a pretty bad interception, which she can't do for the remainder of the season if we want to win. I don't even want to say win, just compete with a really good Michigan team. If you saw them play at all against Penn State, I mean, it was at the same time as the Maryland game. But if you got a chance to watch the replay or anything like that, that Michigan team is really good. So if you think we have any chance of beating Michigan with turning over the ball, we don't. But it was a defensive battle most of the day. And honestly, this is what I said before the game. If you guys listen in, I said, I don't want Maryland to play Nebraska's style of football. I think that's a way and a path road into us losing the game. And that's exactly what we did. We played the style of what kind of Nebraska wants to do. Mush it up, have a turnover type of game, have a lot of punts. And that's what it was. It seemed like it was punt, punt, punt. And then it was turnover. And a low-scoring affair. I read out the scores of Nebraska's season so far on the Friday podcast before the game. It's like really low-scoring stuff. And so I didn't want the Terps to get into this defensive kind of battle because that's not the style of play that we are usually used to. But that's what piggybacks on my point of the Terps winning a game that they don't normally win and showing grit to become a bowl-eligible team. Yes, we are bowl-eligible now. We got that 6th win, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a different segment on another day. But we are bowl-eligible now, so you could look at this season as a success if that's kind of your measurement of success. And I think that's kind of a fair measurement of success, honestly, for a Maryland program, just to get to bowl eligibility. And it's the 3rd time or it's the 3rd straight year that the Terps are bowl eligible. But the big part of the reason why we won this game and we found a way to win a game that we normally don't win was the defense. The defense created 5 takeaways. 5 takeaways. Remember in the beginning of the season when we were top of the country in turnover margin and we were creating a ton of turnovers? Remember those times? Those times were a long time ago. And I mean, we've done a pretty good job. We've created turnovers for sure during this season. But there was a time where we were like number 2 in the country in turnover margin and like number 1 in the country in creating turnovers per game. It was pretty crazy. And it definitely slowed down. And if you remember, I said, that's not sustainable. But Maryland found a way to win this game, and all credit goes to the defense for creating those 5 turnovers because without even one of those turnovers, I don't know if we win that game. And we'll talk about it later on, the individual performances and the players that created those turnovers. But if Maryland doesn't create one of those turnovers, like if they get 4 turnovers instead of 5, I don't know we win that game. I don't know if we win that game. If you remember, it came down to Nebraska was driving the ball down. They had a chance to get it into the end zone. And with 3 minutes left to go up 7 with 3 minutes left. And I didn't know if the Terps were going to be able to put how the offense was playing and how many turnovers there was in the game and the punts. I didn't know if the offense would have been able to put a drive together to go down and score after Nebraska went up 17-10. But Tar Heels still didn't let them go up 17-10 and got a pick on the Nebraska 3rd-string quarterback. Their first string got hurt. Jeff Sims, their 2nd string, played awful. And so they went to their 3rd-string quarterbacks. So you could argue that Nebraska should have never been in the game with us. But like I said, if Maryland doesn't create that turnover there and they create 4 turnovers instead of 5, and Tar Heel still doesn't have that pick on the goal line and it's 17-10 instead of 10-10, and Maryland has the ball with 3 minutes left on a chance to go in a game-winning drive, I don't know if Maryland wins that game. But that's the point. Maryland went 0-2 and 0 of 2 on 4th down conversions. We turned over the ball 3 times. The offense only put up 13 points. And we still found a way to win the game. That's not normal. That's not what we have done in the past. So props to the Maryland Terps for winning a gritty type of win. Now on to a team that didn't win, and that does not look good. Is it time to hit the panic button on Terps basketball? We'll talk about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute, like a Maryland Terrapins basketball game or a Maryland Terrapins football game or any basketball, football, whatever you like to watch, soccer, hockey, whatever you guys like, but the finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The Terps basketball, I'm not even going to try and sugarcoat it. We're in major trouble. Maryland basketball dropped 2 straight games that they should have won against UAB and Davidson, 2 teams that aren't Power 5 teams, 2 teams that you would think Maryland has the upper leg on, 2 teams that Maryland was favored on. Maybe dropping 1, you could say, is early season, just different problems and early season jitters, and we have a lot of young players and new players who are trying to break in. Maybe you could say that about dropping 1, but dropping 2 of those games, and what I saw and with my eyes and how I kind of break down the game, there's no other way to put this except for Maryland basketball is in major trouble. Major trouble. Number 1 reason, the Terps lack scoring ability. You can fix a lot of things. You can fix your defense. You can fix some of the offensive plays. You can fix some rebounding issues. You can fix a lot of different things, but it's hard to fix shooting and scoring ability for the Terps. It's hard to fix not shooting, not being a good shooting team during the season. Bad shooting teams don't become good shooting teams overnight. And once you get to college basketball, honestly, you can develop as a scorer, but like as a shooter and everything, you can develop. Obviously, there's been players that develop, but at a certain point, you kind of are what you are. The elite shooters are usually the elite shooters. The mediocre shooters usually stay around mediocre, and obviously players can get better at it, but usually most of the time, players don't become bad shooters to really good shooters. And right now, Maryland's scoring ability and shooting ability is pretty terrible. Against UAB and Davidson, you would hope to score more than around 62 points. And that's about what the Terps average in those 2 games against UAB and Davidson. Clemson scored 77 against UAB. Clemson's a team that's very solid. Don't get me wrong. They're a very solid team, but nobody thought that going into the season, Clemson was a better team than us. So Clemson scored 77 against UAB, and Bradley, a team I don't really know what Bradley is a team that scored 73 points against UAB. So we have to score more points. It's the main root of our problem. We don't have enough guys right now, or we don't have enough plays right now. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is and how to exactly improve it. I mean, I'm going to go through some ways, but it's going to be up to Kevin Willard. Obviously, I'm not the coach, but we don't have a ton of guys that are elite scorers. I think we have plenty of talent and guys that can get their basket, but if you look at the way that we shoot the ball, we cannot shoot right now. That's the main root of our problem. That might be the number one biggest concern. Against UAB, the Terps shot 26%. And against Davidson, the Terps shot 21% from the three-point line. So we're shooting around 23% between those two games, between UAB and Davidson. That's pretty bad from the three-point line. And maybe even a bigger concern than shooting a lower below 30% from the three-point line is the fact that UAB made one single three the entire game and still found a way to beat us. That is maybe my biggest concern out of everything. Because for a team to be less talented in basketball and college basketball, usually there's a formula to beating and upsetting the more talented bigger dog in March Madness and whenever during the season. Usually, you shoot the ball pretty well. That's usually what it is. Usually, you shoot the three ball pretty well. Not always. Obviously, there's times that doesn't happen. But usually, the teams that are able to upset a more talented team, a more athletic team, they shoot the ball better than the opposing team. But UAB made 1 3. 1 3. That is concerning, that the fact that they were able to beat us scoring one single three the entire game. And believe it or not, UAB outscored the Terps in paint points by 8 points. Maryland has bigger players, longer players, bigger lineups, and UAB outscored us in the paint by almost double digits. That's the reason they didn't have to shoot the three ball at all and still were able to beat us. So that's one thing we have to do better. Scoring the ball, shooting the three-point line better. How do we score inside better if we're not going to be shooting the ball particularly well from the three-point line? Because I don't see that getting much better, to be honest. I mean, maybe guys start to shoot a little bit better, but honestly, if you look at the team and the shooters that we have, I don't see a ton, to be honest. So how does that get better? How do we improve on that? How do we improve on the paint points? Julian Reese has to get more touches. Even in the first game where he had a solid game and he had a double-double and everything, Julian Reese still didn't get enough touches in the first half. And then the second game against UAB, Reese only had 5 points. You have to get him the paint touches. Even if they double-team him in the paint, which I think is pretty high chance of that happening. Even if they double him in the paint, we need to run a lot of the offense through him. We need to get him in the paint because he creates easy buckets in the lane. So just post him up a lot. That's what I think we're going to have to do more. A lot of Julian Reese touches, and he's good at it down there. And if he gets doubled, he can kick it out. And that's where the concern lies. Even if we get the ball into Julian Reese and he kicks the ball out, the scouting report is clear. It's clear as day. You already know what Villanova on Friday is going to force us to do. You already know what when we get into Big Ten play, what Michigan State and Tom Izzo are going to do. They're going to say, we're going to double Julian Reese inside. We're going to collapse on the – and we're going to force you guys to go ahead and kick that ball out, and Deshaun Harris-Smith is going to have to hit a three. Or Jameer Young, who actually shot the three ball pretty well these last couple games, is going to have to make a three. Or maybe a guy like Dante Scott is going to hit a shot. That's what the game plan is going to be. So I can say, it's going to be easy for us to just post Julian Reese up and get more paint points. But that's why I think we're in trouble. We have a clear as day weakness in basketball that is really hard to find a way to snake your way around that and swivel your way around that weakness. It's really hard to do that when you can't shoot the ball really well. Poor shooting teams It's hard to win games in any basketball, high school, NBA, college. It's really hard to win. And that's why I think we're in trouble right now in terms of shooting. And it's like we tried to put in Noah Bachelor into the starting lineup, but he didn't play well. He had the lowest plus minus of the night in terms of anyone on the Maryland Terrapins team. And Noah Bachelor, I don't hate the move that started him. I don't even mind seeing him in the starting lineup again. I think they kind of just didn't give him enough of a chance. But he's a pretty good shooter. And then obviously Jamie Kaiser, our freshman's a pretty good shooter. I'll be interested to see what lineup they roll out against Villanova, because that's going to be a big deal, because they're going to force us to shoot. And our poor shooting ability is the main reason why we're in trouble. But it can't all be on Jameer Young, who's averaging 14.7 points per game. We need more than that. And obviously, Julian Reese is going to be a big part of that, but it can't be all on those two. That's our duo. That's our heart and soul. That's going to get us a lot of wins, I hope. But we're going to need more than that. And the freshmen struggled at times. And I'm not surprised that the freshmen struggle. Deshaun Harris-Smith is struggling to shoot the ball and to score the ball, which honestly kind of makes sense. Deshaun Harris-Smith came into college, and that's not really his game. His game isn't to go for 20 points. I know he can score the ball, and I know he does some awesome things, but he's a tough guy that does everything well. He's going to rebound well. He's going to defend the ball well. He's going to play really hard. But everyone said it. If you read his scouting report on 247, he doesn't have the smoothest offensive game. Obviously, he's a super high 4-star rated recruit and does some really good things. But he's not an elite shooter yet. So we're going to need him to step up and to give us scoring. And he did. He did score the ball against UAB. He did. He had some nice drives. He got blocked a lot. And I think he's going to have to figure out a way to start pulling up in the mid-range game more. I think there was a couple times where he went all the way into the hole where I thought he could have pulled up on the mid-range game, and I've seen him shoot that shot. But overall, Deshaun Harris-Smith struggled, and Jamie Kaiser struggled, which I'm not surprised. We're depending on two highly ranked freshmen, to score the ball for us and to be some of our mainstreams of scoring. And we also had a bunch of defensive miscommunications, but those things can get fixed. Deshaun Harris-Smith and Jamie Kaiser, they're going to get better. But the reason I think we're in trouble, we're having a lot of trouble shooting the ball right now. And so we'll see if it improves. But right now, in my opinion, Maryland basketball is in a lot of trouble going into the rest of the season. Let's get into the last segment of the day. Offensive and defensive MVP for the Terps against Nebraska. I'll tell you about that after this ad from Jace Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for the connection we have, and today I want our chat to be a little bit more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your Revito prescription or any type of prescription, and this is possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now, jacemedical.com, to receive our 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for your service. Supply chain issue caused me to cut pills in half, and I had to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I ordered antibiotics kits. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. So if you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get into the offensive and defensive MVP for the Terps on Saturday in their win against Nebraska. Overall MVP to Tarheeb Still is Maryland football. I love Tarheeb Still. Has started and played since freshman year and has proven himself to be one of the best corners in the Big Ten. Has 5 picks this year. even after missing games. He missed a lot of games this year, and he still has 5 picks. He's finding a way to make an impact every single game. And after a rough stretch from coming back from his injury, honestly, he proved that he is back, and he made the biggest play on the game. We talked about it on the goal line to set up the Maryland 75-yard game-winning drive when it was a 10-10 game with 3 minutes left. And Maryland really needs to stop so that the pressure isn't on the offense to go score 7 points to tie the ball game up. And Tarheeb still gets the pick to make sure that the Terrapins don't have to go tie the game, but instead can go win the game. So he may have been the biggest reason for the win yesterday with the 2 picks. And then he also had another one before the half to make sure Nebraska didn't get points before the half. So Tarheeb still came up huge. And I don't think we win that game if he doesn't play that day. So honestly, he's the overall MVP for the Terps. Offensive MVP, the wide receiver combo of Jayshon Jones and Ty Felton, stepping up on a weird kind of day. Ty Felton started the day with a huge catch in a game that points were hard to come by. Ty Felton got us down the field by himself on that one possession with the huge catch down the sideline. And then also next play got in for the touchdown. So Ty Felton had a huge day. And then Jayshon Jones also had a big day, made some huge plays with 5 receptions for 86 yards with an average of 17.2. Those guys stepped up big in kind of a weird game and a quiet offense today, but we needed those guys to be able to win that game. And then our defensive MVP, Dante Trader, also had a day. Just like Tarheeb Hill, had 2 picks, 5 tackles, and the defensive won the game, and big part of that was because of Dante. They created 5 turnovers, the entire day. We needed the defense today. It was a sloppy game. We played into Nebraska's play style, but we still were able to go into their tough environment. Dante was able to get 2 picks, and he was at the right place at the right time, if you saw, which Dante Trader is all the time. He seems to just make good plays, but 5 tackles for Dante. Really solid day for him to get 2 picks to add on to his season total and his career total. So great day for Dante, great day for Tarheeb still, and a pretty good day from those 2 in the wide receiver core, even though our offense was a little bit quiet at time. But that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Today was an awesome episode. We have our first weekend of real basketball, real football, and it's really cool to talk about both. So make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy Maryland basketball or Maryland football. But thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.